Middle Path Radio, your number one online Islamic talk station.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. This is Raza from MPACUK on Raw with Raza. Thanks to the brothers and sisters at Middle Path Radio for giving me a chance to do this. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about SKH Suliman Gani and what's been happening with him. Those of you that may or may not have seen the news, basically the recap is SKH Suliman Gani was mentioned in during Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday. David Cameron was asked a planted question, as they often are, by a Tory MP, a Conservative MP, who asked David Cameron and said, "Oh, Prime Minister, do you think it's wrong to share platforms with extremists?" And then David Cameron kind of launched into his response about how it's wrong to share platforms with extremists. We should all be against it, etc. And then he said that Labour's candidate for the mayor election, Sadiq Khan, has shared a platform with Suliman Gani, who is an IS who supports IS. Those were his words. Now, what's happened off the back of that is we realised that Cameron has lied. I mean, it's just a blatant lie. Anyone that knows SKH Suliman Gani's work knows that he's actually right at the forefront of tackling this stuff. But I want to break down the whole thing and how it's worked. The reason why David Cameron even made these comments in the first place is because they're trying to help the Tory candidate in London, Zach Goldsmith, and his rubbish campaign. He's not been doing a good job. He's falling behind in the polls to Sadiq Khan. And what they're doing, the only game they're playing is to say, look at that Labour guy, he's a Muslim. Do you really want a Muslim to be in charge? And that kind of racist undertone to their campaign has really ramped up in the last couple of weeks because they realize they can't catch up to him. So what they're hoping for is playing on the fears of the average non-Muslim white guy who just won't know any better and who will think Muslims are out to get him, and that if Sadiq Khan becomes the mayor of London, somehow we're all going to have to start paying in reals and they're going to change their road signs to Arabic and everything, and then they're going to take over Sharia law. It sounds stupid because it is, but remember, if you're an average non-Muslim guy who's never ever really come into contact with Muslims, your only contact is via the mainstream media and the caricatures they make of us and the stereotypes, then you'll actually believe some of that stuff. I mean, I know it sounds stupid to us, but some people actually believe it. I mean, look at the rise of Donald Trump in America. He's playing on these fears. And same thing here, Zach Goldsmith and his campaign are doing too. Now, so that's the first bit of why this thing is happening. Now, let's look at the fallout since David Cameron's comments. So David Cameron makes the comments on Wednesday, and everyone says, hang about, SKH Suliman Gani is A, he's actually spoken out against ISIS, B, you Tories have shared platforms with him as well. So how do you explain that? And instantly, Cameron's lot have said, row back, let's not talk about this anymore, we need to take a step back from this. So what Cameron spoke to him, and it's such weasel words, they asked her, so can you please explain, David Cameron said, SKH Suliman Gani, he supports IS, where's your proof for that? And her response was, it's in the Guardian article, you can check it out, she goes, well actually, SKH Suliman Gani supports the idea of a caliphate, which is an Islamic state. So technically, David Cameron is correct because because SKH Suliman Gani does support an IS, an Islamic state. Now that's not true because Cameron didn't say he supports an IS. Cameron says he supports IS. The reason why I'm emphasizing this is because David Cameron should not be allowed to get away with his lie. He's actually lied about a respected man within the community and around the world actually for the work he's done in campaigning on religious matters, etc., and has smeared him. That can have massive consequences on a man's life, physically and just mentally for his family, his children, etc. Now, due to parliamentary privilege, because Cameron made those comments in Parliament, he can't actually be sued for defamation regarding those comments at all. But it doesn't mean that we can't put pressure on him. We have to, because Cameron is lying. And that's what it is. Let's not say, oh, he's misrepresenting the truth. No, you're lying. Say it as bluntly as it needs to be said. I mean, MPACUK have put out an action alert asking Muslims that you need to be contacting your MP, your public servant, and demanding that your MP hold Cameron to account. If you and I made a mistake about something, man, they'd be on our case straight away. But David Cameron, his dad can have some money in the tax haven, and he can lie about a respected Muslim scholar in the UK, and what, there's no repercussions at all? No. And the thing is this, and you have to understand the mindset of those in power. The only reason why they're not really responding to this story is because they're hoping it will go away. They're hoping that you and I won't show enough interest on the topic to continue to ramp up the pressure and demand some sort of accountability from our Prime Minister. And so that's why it's important for Muslims to put that pressure on them and say, no, no, no. You said a comment, now you either back it up or you apologize. That's what needs to happen, and we need to make that a very clear line, so that anytime you treat a Muslim in this manner, we will not accept it. That brings me on to the next point, which is about how Muslims have actually responded to the story about Sheikh Suliman Gani. To be honest, brothers and sisters, it's been absolutely pathetic. I mean, there's what we always do this as a community. What we'll do is that we'll give everyone a pat on the back and say, yeah, man, you're doing some really good work, man, I really respect you. But then let a guy go fight his own battles. We're not backing him. We're not supporting him the way we should be. And yet we'll say, no, I support you, Sheikh Suliman Gani. You have to ask yourself, what does support actually mean in your head? Does support mean a Facebook post or a tweet or a like? That's not good enough on its own. It needs to also be coupled with other actual organized political actions that send a powerful message. So I'll give you some examples. One is getting your MP to hold David Cameron to account. And if your MP is not been asking questions of David Cameron already, you should be asking questions of your MP, saying, mate, what are you on about? Cameron's lied, and he's playing an Islamophobic game, and he's just attacking this sheikh because he's trying to get some cheap political points. Why aren't you speaking about this? And so that's so that's the first thing that we can do. The second thing you and I can do is this. I mean, some of the brothers and sisters on Twitter, they organized a Twitter storm about with the hashtag Dodgy Dave to highlight and the hypocrisy of David Cameron and explain that how he's been lying about Sheikh Suliman Gani. And we need more of that. Social media is a game changer, guys. But as Muslims, we don't really use it in an effective, organized way. I'll give you one example. Let's look at the Chapel Hill shootings. Yeah, do you remember last year those 3 Muslims that were brutally murdered by that hardcore extremist atheist guy in America, and they said it was because of a parking dispute, but actually it wasn't. In that case, what happened is that the mainstream media didn't really cover the story. But when Muslims started to make noise on social media, it started to trend, and mainstream media was forced to cover the story and say, what's going on here? Same thing applies here, guys. Social media allows us to walk away from the mainstream and say, we're not gonna play your propaganda game. We're not gonna let you tell us what's the stories. We're gonna tell you what's important. And that's where Muslims, we've not really been utilizing our power. We've all got phones, we can all do something, but we're not using that power to actually defend the Muslim community. So that's the second thing you and I can do. So first thing, remember, write to your MPs, put pressure on them to hold Cameron to account. Secondly, use social media. But the third thing, and this is important too, we have so many mosques, Muslim groups, and other institutions and organizations in the UK, but they have been woefully silent in defending Sheikh Suliman Gani. There needs to be a public outcry about this. I mean, here's the thing, guys. We're not even in the wrong about anything. Cameron's blatantly lied, so you're on sure footing. Like there's no room at all for any sort of doubt or a misinformation. It's clear Cameron has blatantly lied. And guys, we need to go after him on that point and ramp up the pressure and holding our MP, our Prime Minister to account. But if your Muslim organization isn't getting involved in that stuff, you have to ask some serious questions about what do they actually do. For example, the MCB found time to congratulate the Queen on her 90th birthday, but they haven't found the time to really go out and properly defend, Sheikh Suliman Gani. And other groups as well. Why are they on this stuff? Why aren't they talking about these issues? The only 2 groups I've seen so far that have really come out, and I don't mean Muslim media organizations, that's separate. Their job is to report the information. But Muslim organizations that campaign, that talk about issues, have been Islam 21C and MPACUK. Everyone else hasn't really done anything, and that's not good enough. You can't say we're one ummah and then actually let him hang out to dry and fight his own battles. That's not the Muslim way. And I think that's the other thing, guys, is that when you talk about the ummah's one body, that from the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, you got to realize that isn't some empty slogan that we've turned it into. That is a mindset that says, you are my brother, you are my sister. You said the Shahada, that's it, now we're family and we're tight. And anytime you're in pain, I'm in pain. Anytime you're happy, I'm happy. And if you're sad, I'm sad. And I'm going to make sure I help deal with that issue and alleviate your oppression, your injustice. It's a mindset that you and I need to have. And if you haven't got that mindset, you have to really ask yourself, what kind of Islam is this that we're following that says that we support one another, but when we're blatantly being lied about, we're not going to do anything? That's part of the reasons why we're in the mess that we're in, that we don't defend ourselves against blatant lies. Guys, we need to make sure we put the pressure on Cameron. Now, here's the final thing, though, and this is this, that a lot of Muslims, they start to those that have defended Sheikh Suliman Gani on Twitter, I would suggest a different strategy for some people. What they've started to do is say, well, actually, look, the Sheikh has done a lot of work regarding tackling ISIS, etc. David Cameron, is wrong. And what they've done is they've started to big up the credentials of how Sheikh Suliman Gani has done lots and lots of work against ISIS. And that's cool. But what I would say is that I wouldn't recommend putting too much energy on that front, because you're still playing his game. You're still trying to prove, are you a good Muslim or a bad Muslim? Instead, what I'd say is this, is we need to say, no. Sheikh Suliman Gani record stands for itself. It speaks for itself. Rather, David Cameron, you need to explain yourself or your lies. And also, do him over in his hypocrisy. David Cameron says it's wrong to share platforms with extremists, and yet this is the same Prime Minister that has invited Sisi from Egypt, who's invited Netanyahu from Israel, and Modi from India. All these are extremists. All these are people that he's shared a platform with, and yet he's never been held to account. But he can be held to account if we do it. And this is a classic thing, guys. You'll notice with these guys, especially with the Islamophobia industry, that they say one thing and they're hypocrites. They normally mess up themselves and do this stuff. So Cameron talks about not sharing platforms with extremists. He's done it himself. That needs to be flipping plastered everywhere. That needs to be everywhere. And remember, guys, you're dealing with a state that is run by people that don't treat you as equal citizens. Now, to tackle that power, you have to flex your muscles and show your own power, your own political power, and use social media and use the MPs and put pressure on them, because that's the only way we will make a difference. But regarding Sheikh Suliman Gani, I mean, I've had some conversations with him since watching what happened. But I mean, mashallah, it's fantastic the work that he does, and I know he won't stop. But it's not right that he's had to really defend himself only. This should have been a community-wide response, and I think we need to be more organized in how we deal with this stuff. Now, when I say being organized, guys, I don't mean everyone working in some fancy office or everyone being part of just one organization. This isn't some pitch to everyone join MPAC. But the idea is, when I say being organized, I mean sitting down with family and friends and other people and saying, look, guys, here are the problems facing that community, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. What are the problems? What are the solutions? Now let's get to work. That is what we don't do as a community. We don't actually sit down, and that's what organization really means, to be organized. What do you think MPAC is? MPAC is just a group of people that got together and said, lads, well, how are we going to deal with these problems? I've had enough of Muslims being treated as second-class citizens. Same thing goes for you. If you have those same questions going around in your mind, and you've got friends and family that think the same, lads, simple. Sit down with them and say, guys, what are we going to do? And when you start asking that question, then you can start to organize, what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and guys, you'll start to see some improvements. It's that thing. You're going to end up taking one step towards Allah, and Allah will come running towards you. And it's that thing. Take that step, because you can't lose. And I think this is the thing I always say to brothers and sisters who are unsure about, oh, bro, I'm not really so political, I'm not into politics, etc. Guys, do you think I flipping enjoy politics? I mean, politics isn't a hobby. Politics is a necessity. I mean, if I could do what I wanted in my life, all I would do is work chill with my son and play FIFA all day. That's what I'd want to do in my life. But that's not what a Muslim does. There's responsibilities. There's and there's people, the rights that your family and your ummah have over you, and you need to work on that front. And it's so when I say get involved in politics, I'm saying get involved in it not because you want to, but because you have to. Because remember, when the bombs are dropped on Muslim lands, or when the government decides on legislation like prevent, those conversations don't happen randomly. They happen in the corridors of political power. Now, if you want to, make sure these things don't influence you, don't hurt you in a bad way, they don't impact you in a bad way, then you and I need to be in those corridors of political power. I'm not asking for every single one of you to become an MP. That's not what I'm asking for. What I'm asking for is for taking intelligent political action. So if you're a blogger, get blogging on these issues. If you're someone that's big on Twitter or Facebook, get tweeting about these issues. If you're someone that's into their poetry or their art, then use that to get the point across. If you're someone that's good at writing articles, write your articles. If you're good, whatever you're good at, use that talent to do good, because inch by inch we'll move forward, inshallah, and tackle the hate we're facing. But if we don't, And this is the important thing, because if we don't do that, if we don't take an organized response, what we do is that we allow good men like Sheikh Suliman Gani to be smeared, to be maligned, and for an Islamophobic narrative about Muslims to gain more traction. So guys, all I'd end this video on is saying is that let's show our support for Sheikh Suliman Gani. So send him a message of support, contact your MP, get on social media as well, and ramp up the pressure. Because remember, David Cameron is hoping you forget. No, we won't forget this. We're not going to forgive or forget this at all. We're going to hold you to account. But it's for you and I to do. If there's about 3 million Muslims in the UK. If every Muslim in the UK gave even £1 towards the fight against Islamophobia, we'd have £3 million in the fight against the Islamophobic industry. If 3 million Muslims were to use social media in an intelligent way, we could counter a lot of mainstream media propaganda. If 3 million Muslims were, contacting their MP, putting pressure on that, to make sure there's pressure on David Cameron, we would see a response, but it requires on us to do. So brothers and sisters, that's my final message. Let's do, put your trust in Allah, and guess what? You're guaranteed to win. This life or the next, God guarantees you're going to win. Because guess what? You're fighting for justice. You're asking for equality. You're asking an end to oppression. How can Allah ever let you lose? Assalamu alaikum.